Okay, so you've shared some really interesting ideas with us,
Yeah.
all pointing towards building a successful podcast, something like Chapter Crunch.
That's right. And the core source we're diving into is Kiki Ely's The Complete Guide to Self-Care.
Which, on the face of it, self-care and podcasting, maybe not an obvious link.
Maybe not immediately obvious, no. But our mission here in this deep dive is to kind of pull out those actionable insights.
Right, insights from this self-care guide that could actually help shape a podcast that, well, connects, delivers value.
Exactly. We're looking at how these self-care ideas might inform things like summaries, practical tips, even interactivity and structure.
So let's jump in. Where do these connections start to become clear?
Well, it's quite striking, actually. Ely's frames self-care as basically identifying and meeting your needs, for happiness, focus, stability.
Joy, peace, all those good things.
Yeah. And if you think about it, isn't a podcast like Chapter Crunch also trying to meet a need?
Like the need for knowledge? Or maybe just a focus moment in a busy day.
Precisely. A need for understanding, perhaps. Or efficient learning.
I like that framing. The book even had that clever bit where you put your name in the title.
Oh yeah, insert your name, here's complete guide.
It makes it instantly personal. And that sparked a thought for me. How does a show like Chapter Crunch create that personal feeling for you, the listener?
Good question. Even when it's summarized content.
It's more than just facts, right? It needs to feel relevant to your learning journey.
Absolutely. And think about the book's structure. Ely builds it up, physical needs first, then internal stuff, spiritual, then outward.
A progression.
Right. So could Chapter Crunch structure its summaries similarly, build understanding step by step, guide the listener through the core ideas?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Lay the groundwork first. And just like self-care needs you to understand yourself.
Yeah.
Well, Chapter Crunch really needs to understand its audience, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What are you hoping to get when you tune in?
Knowing that is key. That's how you craft summaries that actually land, that resonate.
Okay, so that covers the summary angle. What about practical insights, getting something tangible?
Let's look at Ely's movement section. She talks about daily movement, even just walking or stretching, boosting mood, cutting anxiety.
Simple stuff, big impact.
Exactly. So the podcast parallel. Maybe it's about ensuring every summary has these small, actionable takeaways.
Helpful insights you can actually use right away.
Yes. That feeling of, I learned something useful. That could be like the mental equivalent of that post-walk mood boost.
I like that. And then there's the nourishment part of the book. Intuitive eating, stocking your kitchen, ABCs, rainbow shopping.
Healthy staples.
Kind of feels like Chapter Crunch is offering nutritious intellectual content,
Selecting the best bits, presenting them clearly.
Like having healthy food ready to go makes it easier to eat well. Easy access to good ideas.
And there's an efficiency link, too. Ely talks about time management, time blocking.
Making the most of your day.
Right. And a good podcast respects your time, doesn't it? Concise, focused, valuable, no fluff.
It's efficient with your attention span, basically.
Yeah. Which connects to the social media advice in the book, too. Curation, limiting screen time.
Ah, interesting. So Chapter Crunch acts as a curator.
In a way, yes. It gives you the core ideas without the endless scrolling or feeling overwhelmed trying to read everything. It's a more intentional way to consume ideas.
Intentional intellectual consumption. I like that.
And think about the writing section, journaling for clarity, self-awareness.
Morning pages, gratitude journals.
How could Chapter Crunch mimic that effect? Maybe through prompts.
Like asking questions at the end. Encouraging you, the listener, to reflect on how the ideas connect to your own life.
Exactly. Fostering a bit of intellectual self-awareness.
Okay, so practical takeaways make sense. What about interactivity? Building that connection.
Well, Ely's social self-care section is all about connecting with others, right? Volunteering, community.
So for Chapter Crunch, that could mean what? Asking listeners questions.
Yeah, or surveys maybe, asking you what books you want summarized next, or what your key takeaway was.
Making it feel more like a two-way street, a conversation.
And the book even suggests doing exercises with friends or in book clubs.
Ah, so listeners might share episodes, discuss the ideas together.
It extends the learning, doesn't it? Makes it a shared thing, beyond just listening alone.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also like the remaining childlike section in the book and the connection exercises.
That sense of curiosity, wonder.
Yes. A great podcast can tap into that, can it? That feeling of shared discovery. It's not just downloading info.
It's about the joy of learning together, building that connection.
Right. And even the gratitude journal idea.
How does that connect?
Well, maybe the podcast could just prompt a moment of reflection, like what value did you get from this summary? What resonated?
Encouraging that reflection on value received. Subtle, but potentially powerful.
Okay, let's shift to structure, the dynamic structure piece.
Right. Look at Ely's introduction. It immediately speaks to potential struggles, overwhelm, stress, and offers self-care as the path forward.
It hooks you by addressing a need.
Exactly. So, lesson for a podcast. A strong, concise intro is crucial. Grab the listener, show them what's in it for them fast.
Makes sense? And the book is full of different types of content, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exercises, routines.
Like the stretching routines, grounding exercise, the 5 senses thing.
They break things up, keep it engaging within the overall structure.
So Chapter Crunch could do that too, mix it up within an episode.
Yeah, maybe after the main summary you have like a quick fire round of the key quotes or a how-to based on one core idea.
Diverse segments. Keeps it dynamic.
And what about the recipes? The homemade soap, the bath salts?
Oh yeah, tangible things you can make.
So for the podcast, that could translate to concrete resources.
Links, perhaps, further reading, maybe even a downloadable checklist based on the book's ideas. Something actionable.
Offering tangible value beyond just the audio summary.
Then there's the sleep section, the focus on rituals, creating a bedroom sanctuary.
How does that relate?
Think about the listener's experience. Creating a consistent, comfortable listening experience is like creating that sanctuary.
So regular schedule, good audio quality, familiar format.
Exactly. It builds reliability, comfort, makes people want to come back. It becomes part of their routine, their sanctuary in a way.
That's a neat parallel. And one last thing from the book's structure, the quotes at the start of each chapter.
Right. Framing the content, setting the tone.
Super simple but effective. Chapter Crunch could easily use impactful quotes from the books it summarizes.
Definitely. A great way to highlight a core message right at the start or throughout.
So pulling this all together, it's actually quite striking how these self-care principles really do offer a solid framework for a podcast like Chapter Crunch.
It really does. It's all about providing that intellectual nourishment, engaging summaries, practical insights,
Fostering connection, interactivity.
and structuring it all thoughtfully, respecting the listener's time and attention. It's about creating a genuinely valuable, enriching experience.
Yeah, it reframes podcast creation. It's not just pushing information out. It's more like contributing to the listener's, intellectual well-being.
Well put.
So a final thought for you as you think about creating something like Chapter Crunch. Which of these self-care ideas resonates most with your vision? Is it the resonant summaries, the practical tips, the community building, the dynamic structure?
And more importantly, how might you intentionally weave those principles into the very DNA of your show?
It's a really fascinating connection to explore. We definitely encourage you to keep thinking about it and maybe even share your own thoughts with us.